Hello and welcome to today's Student CPD session. It's potentially your favourite but could be your worst. This topic is presentations, how to do a good one, things to avoid and what you're likely to be assessed on. As I've mentioned, for some people standing up in front of a group of others gives such an adrenaline rush that they could do it all day, and most likely those people go on to become teachers. However, for others, standing up in front of a room full of people can be absolutely terrifying. Those people also go on to become teachers because they use strategies that enable them to make the most out of this really quite important skill that you will use for the rest of your life in one way, shape, or another. So, when you look at the presentations you're expected to do as part of an A-level student and potentially even lower down in school, you must always be able to speak clearly and audibly, covering your mouth, looking down into your own chest, looking at the floor, focusing on the ceiling. Anything that blocks the auditory transmission of your ideas is going to affect any mark that you are going to get for a speaking and listening element of any assessment. You must speak in standard English during a presentation and avoid using slang unless, of course, it's to illustrate a point. You get more marks for if you express difficult ideas or concepts using sophisticated vocabulary, and the best piece of advice I have for that is reading widely. The more you read, the more you come into contact with, the more it becomes part of your natural and normal vocabulary. All of your presentations should always be structured so they make sense to your audience. You need to be able to achieve what you set out to do and not get distracted, and listen to questions carefully and be able to respond appropriately. One of my favourite things during the lockdown period has been watching the way that politicians speak to each other and answer questions, and then how quickly those surrounding them have adopted the rhetoric of the same principles. So if you look at the daily briefings, for example, and a lot of these are available on YouTube, you have members of the public forming questions in the same way that politicians do. It's really interesting as a study of language to think about the way that we mirror one another. But communication fails if you miss these. If you don't speak in a fashion that someone can understand, if you use vocabulary that is inappropriate, and if you start out with one intention and you don't achieve it, then why would you even begin? So when we think about some of the presentations that you might have to do as part of an A-level student, you will realise that they might not be formal, but they appear very frequently. Every time that you're asked to do a peer presentation or potentially even give feedback on an idea that you've researched during any of your lessons, you are conducting a short, small presentation. You might also wonder why teachers make such use of flipped learning so frequently. But if you think about your future career, you will find there are many instances where you will be expected to disseminate the information that you are the expert on. Your first encounter with this will be a job interview. You will be expected to present on yourself, to pitch why you are a good candidate for that position. So the easier or the more comfortable you get with this as a process, the better it's going to be for you in the long run. I have 3 and no more than ideas to help you work your way to prepare yourself to be a better presenter as a student. And the first one is thinking about your planning. I believe it would be universally acknowledged that it's a bad idea to sit and read from a script. At this present moment, I'm not doing so, and you will notice that in the way that I am conducting myself that I often have to use fillers. However, that's so much more authentic than reading from a piece of paper that doesn't allow for spontaneity and creativity. The reason I'm able to do this is because I am confident with my subject matter. And so when we've got this presentation of word association, this is exactly what I do in these videos. I make a list of slides that has a different topic, and they're there to prompt me to talk about that particular idea in relation to how it's suitable to you as a student. And I would actively encourage you to be able to do the same in any of your subject matter. If you gave yourself one word, consider how long you could talk about that particular piece of information. So if we took, for example, sociology, and I gave you the word Durkheim, how much would you be able to tell me about Emile Durkheim and all of the different sociological theories associated with him? I believe you'd surprise yourself, because the more you've got in touch with your specific A level and the more intimate you become with the subject content, this is your specialism. You are the expert. And that is something that you will find. You don't need a script. You can talk about it because you know it. Part of that engages with an element of confidence, and you'll have to excuse the drawing that I put together. There has been a psychological study that suggests before an important presentation, if you stand in the superhero stance, so that's legs shoulder width apart, feet shoulder width apart, hands on hips, shoulders back, chest forward, you are addressing the confidence that you need. You are taking that as your own. Your posture and your body language is important for the way that you are able to project your voice and conduct your ideas. So give yourself that boost. Make yourself the superhero of presentations. Believe in yourself even when you don't. Stand tall. You know this material well, and you have a valid point. One of the things that makes me so sad as a teacher is when my students start an idea by saying, I could be wrong, but I'm not sure, but this might not be right, but you're starting on the assumption that you're inaccurate, and that so often isn't the case. Don't apologize for having an idea. Make sure that you believe in yourself and other people will follow. The next topic in terms of presentations that I quickly want to touch on is the language, the tone, all of the prosodic features that you use when you're talking. The moment that your audience changes, you will notice a change naturally occurring in the language that you use. If I told you you were to ask a favour of the following people, the way that you would address that person differs. Often, when teaching English language, I always conduct the experiment of swearing. So who swears? Near enough everybody in the class will raise their hand. Who swears to their friends? Everybody keeps their hand up. To their parents? A few will put their hands down. To their grandparents? Oh my goodness, there's maybe one or two students, but no more. Now, why is that? Why is it that with grandparents you tone that language down, and yet with your best friend you elevate it? It's because you're recognizing the differences in relationships and your language naturally falls into that pattern. So, bearing all that in mind, I have a couple of tasks for you to be working on today to help you in terms of preparing for your presentation. I would like you now to take the task that's on your screen and make notes for it. So you're asking for a favour. It can be a different favour for a different person. So for example, for your teacher, it might be an extension on a piece of work. For your best friend, it might even be to borrow a pen. But write down legitimately the way that you would address them. Then, when we think about your ability to stand tall, I would like you to go and find a mirror, or maybe even take a photograph. Look at your posture and really reflect on it. I want you to maybe look at yourself with your shoulders bent in and your chin down on your chest, and I want you to say a statement. It can be anything, any content of your A levels, and think about how that makes you feel. And then push those shoulders back, raise your head, stand tall. How does that make you feel? Then I would like you to have a go at the word association. So take one of the topics in any of your subjects, give it one word, and for no more than 2 minutes, write everything you know about that one word on a piece of paper. Once the 2 minutes is up, pass the piece of paper to a friend. Then, in another 2 minutes, using only the word as a stimuli, what I would like you to do is to talk about that topic for another 2 minutes and ask your friend to tick off the things that you pick up. Did you manage to get them all? Were there any missing? This is to help you see that actually what you know is vast. It might be that your belief in what you know is small, but the knowledge is most definitely there.